In Southwest Oregon, the 4th District, the congressional race this year is between Democratic incumbent Peter DeFazio and his Republican challenger, Art Robinson, and also someone else who is anonymous, but who is spending a ton of money on this race. Nobody knows who they are. They are an entity that exists only on paper filed by a Republican lobbyist in Washington. They've spent more than $150,000 already running this ad against the Democratic incumbent in this race, against Mr. DeFazio.
Nancy Pelosi and Peter DeFazio made a mess of our economy. Their policies aren't working. It's time for change. Art Robinson is a research scientist, not a politician.
And so on. More than $150,000 running that ad to promote the Republican campaign of Art Robinson. Art Robinson, the beneficiary of this political intervention, says he has no idea who this mysterious rich group is, but he is very happy to have their help in his race. Joining us for the interview tonight, I'm delighted to say, is Republican congressional candidate Art Robinson. Mr. Robinson, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you for yours.
Am I correct in saying that you really have no idea who's funding this $150,000 ad buy that promotes your candidacy?
That's correct.
It would be illegal for somebody to try to give you a $150,000 campaign contribution, to write you that kind of a check. Isn't this essentially an in-kind donation of that size?
What's legal is the donations I've received from 3,500 people to support my campaign. I'm happy to have this help because my challenger, my opponent, Mr. DeFazio, is spending more than $1 million on the campaign. And he has had more money than me for television and radio. I'm delighted that these people have helped to level the playing field.
But does the fact that the donations to this group are anonymous, does that bother you at all, just as an American? I mean, if you get elected in part because of this spending and then you find out it's from criminals or foreign interests or communists or something, wouldn't that bother you?
Doesn't it bother you that Mr. DeFazio gets $500,000 for his campaign from special interests that he's done favors for in Washington? Well, the American people don't know where his money comes from. And your representation that this money could come from criminals is simply a way of trying to smear them and smear me by association.
Well, who are
this
they,
campaign is about something else. This campaign is about Mr. DeFazio's votes for big government, high taxes, and higher things which impinge on our lives from Washington. It's about his failure to protect the fisheries and forests of our district for use by our businesses.
But, sir, do you dispute
the medical care bill when he didn't tell... It's about his vote for the medical care bill when he promised not to do it. It's about all kinds of things. You want to look into finances? Pete DeFazio ships his personal money to a tax haven in New Zealand.
Sir,
does that interest you? You're not interested in anything except this issue, which will divert the campaign from the main issues that American voters want to hear.
What I'm interested in is what's new about this year. What's new about this year in American politics, which is that a group that does not disclose its funders at all, we have no idea where the money came from, has dumped $150,000 into your race on your behalf. And I find it hard to believe that as a civic-minded guy, as a guy who's been so publicly engaged as you have been, that you're not at all disturbed by the fact that all of those dollars are anonymous. Really? It doesn't bother you at all?
If you had been informing the voters about where the $1 million he is spending came from, and the $1 million that I will spend from individual donors, 3,500 of them, the fact that his money is special interest money, the fact that mine is all from individual people,
except for the $150,000 anonymous dollars that you won't talk to me about,
then I would be concerned perhaps that you couldn't find out about where this smaller amount of money comes from.
The 150 grand
that you...
But dude,
what you
may
want
I
to
just
do
ask
is
you
to talk
yes or
about
no?
everything except the issues in this campaign. What you want to do is throw mud at me.
No,
and I want to tell you something.
I want to know
the mud is sticking to you.
I want to know an answer to this question. Ready?
Yes.
Do you care?
Well, we'll see.
Wait, I haven't asked the question yet. Do you care?
Do I care about what?
Do
I care about the...
Wait, let me ask the question, and then you can answer. It's
do
a good...
I care about your sarcasm? No, I don't care about your sarcasm.
You don't care about the...
What I care about is getting the issues to the voters. And this program of yours is simply a way of diverting the campaign from those issues. And, of course, for Mr. DeFazio, he's taken this issue out so MoveOn.org will raise money for him.
I'm going to take it as a no that you don't care about the anonymity of the money that's being used to spend $150,000 of ads on your campaign. I'm just going to take that as a no. Okay, so let's talk about your beliefs. Now, you are well known for your belief that global warming is made up.
My beliefs. Let's do that. All right.
Do you not want to talk about your beliefs?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You're well known for your belief that global warming is made up, that is not true. That's sort of the source of your national reputation, to the extent that you have one. Your opponent, Mr. DeFazio, is also
a belief. That's a conclusion I reached as a physical scientist. I have a degree from Caltech. Many other men who have degrees from Caltech have agreed with me on this.
Okay.
There are thousands of physical scientists in this country who, on the basis of scientific information alone, reject the idea of human-caused global warming. You wish to portray each of those people as a nut. I'll tell you, madam, there are thousands and thousands of them, far more than there are at the UN, pushing this bogus claim of human-caused global warming. You like it as a political issue.
Do you mind if I ask you a question about your beliefs?
It's a dead scientific issue, madam.
Do you mind if I ask you about your beliefs on this?
It's not a belief. It's a scientifically concluded...
Your scientifically proven fact that it's not true. May I ask you about some of your scientifically proven, absolutely true beliefs that anybody who questions is attacking you about? Okay. You have advocated that radioactive...
You can go right ahead. You've already put a big pejorative statement before the statement, but go ahead and ask anything you like.
You have advocated that radioactive waste should be dissolved in water and, quote, widely dispersed in the oceans. Quote, all we need to do with nuclear waste is dilute it to a low radiation level and sprinkle it over the ocean or even over America after hormesis is better understood and verified with respect to more diseases. Now, hormesis is your belief that low-level radiation is good for us to a certain extent? Is that right?
The statements that you have just made are untrue.
I was quoting you.
Take tiny excerpts from a vast amount of writing I've done on this scientific subject. I've not advocated any of this. As a scientist, I've written
did you not
about
say this?
These and many other possibilities.
Wait. Are you saying that
you are not telling the truth.
Are you saying
if you want to tell the truth, that's fine. I'm not going to answer to your lie. That's just more mud.
I'm quoting from your own newsletter.
This is a complicated scientific subject which you are misrepresenting to your viewers.
Did you not write this?
Very complicated scientific subject and giving me 30 seconds to answer. That can't be done. You go ahead and misrepresent the truth, but it won't work for you.
All we need to do with nuclear waste is dilute it. Did you write this? This is I'm quoting from your newsletter. There's no ellipses here. All we need to do with nuclear waste is dilute it to a low radiation level and sprinkle it over the ocean, or even over America. After hormesis is better understood and verified with respect to more diseases.
You have picked a few words and twisted them into an untruth.
Okay, let me ask you about some other words from your own...
You're just throwing mud.
Let me ask you about some other things that I got. I'm trying to learn about you, so I went and read your newsletter. In your newsletter, Access to Energy,
what
your
you're
newsletter,
doing is
right?
trying to smear me by barely...
I'm trying to get to know you by asking you about stuff you've written that I don't understand.
Everybody viewing this program knows exactly what you're trying to do. That's your stock and trade.
Can I ask you...
It's not mine. I'm a scientist, and a very good one.
Can I ask you about something else that you've written in your newsletter, and you can tell me that I'm taking it out of context?
You can ask anything you want. You're running the camera.
In your newsletter, Access to Energy, you wrote approvingly of the idea that AIDS is a myth, right? I'm quoting you. The arguments presented against the HIV...
Wait a minute. I didn't hear you.
I'm quoting you here. The arguments presented against the HIV hypothesis are sound. You wrote this. Median age at death for homosexual men dying of AIDS is 39 years, and for homosexual men who do not die of AIDS is 42. By comparison, the value for heterosexual married men is 75. This is evidence in support of the hypothesis that AIDS may be little more than a general classification of deaths resulting from exposure to homosexual behavior. So you're writing about the myth that HIV doesn't cause AIDS.
Date on that quotation, madam?
That is from 1995. Do you no longer believe that?
Yeah, 1995. 15 years ago, there was still a debate over the cause of AIDS, and I was writing about that. I wrote about all the other hypotheses, too. 15 years ago, the scientific debate was different than it is today.
No, it wasn't,
and I wrote approvingly on many of the hypotheses. But you have picked a 15-year-old quote.
Right.
You've taken it totally out of context. I wrote a lot about this issue, trying to make it look bad 15 years later. Why don't you do something up to date?
Well, I want to know if you still believe this. Only government reclassification of more and more disease types as AIDS cases cases has kept the numbers of victims at politically necessary levels. You were a conspiracist that AIDS was a government conspiracy in 1995 at a time when a lot of Americans were dying of AIDS. You were advocating that it was made up for political purposes. Have you changed your mind about that, or do you still believe it?
No.
No, you haven't changed your mind?
You just strung several lies together in a row, and I don't have time to answer them.
I'm quoting from your own newsletter, sir.
You just strung several lies together in a row because you infused vast amounts of editorial comment into this complicated issue.
Did you say
you
only government reclassification?
About my views, madam.
Well, let me ask you about.
You're just lying
here's
about
a direct quote.
I
only
told
government
you you're writing about it. You're reading out of context quotes from 15 years ago.
Do you
out
no
of a
longer
large body
believe?
Of information that I wrote, and I'm not interested in debating what was thought about 15 years ago.
What you wrote 15 years ago and published. Here's the thing, though.
Why don't you get to the truth?
These are
Why
your
don't
public.
you just stop being so sarcastic and ask a reasonable question?
If you think this is sarcasm, you misunderstand the term. I can show you sarcasm. What I'm asking you about is stuff that you have written, sir.
You know what you're doing. I know what you're doing.
Is this still your belief?
Pete DeFazio voted for higher taxes. Pete DeFazio voted for more regulation of Oregonians. Pete DeFazio has cut off Oregonians from the use of their forests and their fisheries. Pete DeFazio voted for the medical care bill after he promised his
you would like to replace him in office. I would love to ask you about your stated views.
To buy American while he was shipping his own personal assets abroad.
Mr.
You don't
Robinson?
want to talk about any of that. Those are the issues in this campaign.
I have interviewed Pete DeFazio in the past. Now I'm trying to interview you about your stated beliefs.
That you can talk about this 15 years later.
Wait.
Look,
See, here's the thing. I've already interviewed Pete DeFazio about his
Why
positions.
don't you talk about the political issues in this campaign?
Why don't I'm trying to get to know you.
15 years ago, part of the issues of the campaign? No, it's not.
You would like to unseat Pete DeFazio in Congress.
It's fun to argue with you on your own show, but you really ought to settle down and talk about at least one single substantive issue from this campaign. Why don't you try
I'm trying to get to know you as a candidate. I've interviewed Mr. DeFazio already.
No, you're not. You're trying to smear me.
I'm asking you about things that you've written that are in the public record.
Yes, you are, madam.
Do you deny that this is stuff that you've written? Any of the things that I've quoted from you, do you no longer believe these things?
This is 15 years ago.
Do you no longer believe things that you believed 15 years ago? Have you changed your mind?
What you said.
Well, let me ask you about what you've said. And then you can tell me whether or not you agree with it anymore.
You're representing that I wrote something 15 years ago, and I don't even have the documents in front of me. This is a smear campaign.
It's not a smear campaign.
Stop smearing me and talk about a single issue in this campaign. You're afraid to talk about the issues because your candidate is wrong on every one of the issues.
If it were possible to smear a person by quoting to him things that he has published in his own newsletter that he edits, then I don't know how you define a smear campaign for normal human interaction. I'm quoting to you about stuff that you said.
15 years ago. I've written thousands and thousands of pages.
A lot of which have really crazy statements on them, a lot of which I'd love to ask you about.
That instead of the issues in this campaign.
Let me ask you about hormesis.
You're throwing mud, and I'll tell you something.
Can I ask you about hormesis?
It's sticking to you. Every one of your viewers knows exactly what you are, madam.
You are hormesis?
They know. They know that you have a political contest here between two candidates, and instead of discussing the issues, you're going over the thousands of pages of stuff this guy's written.
To try to figure out who you are.
You're picking something 15 years ago, and you're quoting it to him in a context where he can't even check the quotes.
Let's talk about hormesis.
That is not honest journalism.
Well, let me
that
ask.
Is what you do. It's an entertainment, perhaps,
let's
but it's
talk
not
about
journalism.
hormesis. So hormesis is your belief that low level.
Hormesis is a complicated scientific issue.
Well, help me understand it.
Help me understand think you're capable of understanding it.
That's patronizing and charming, but I would love to get you to expand on it. Hormesis is your idea that low-level radiation is good for us, right? Now, I realize that you're also an advocate for expanded nuclear weapons testing in the United States. Is that because you think it would be beneficial to up the background radiation levels in the United States because that radiation would be good for us? When the American Spectator wrote an article on you in 2001...
That's an outright lie. That is an outright lie,
I'm asking you a question.
You can't even find an out-of-context quote to support that one.
Here, wait, let me ask you a question.
Would you like me to answer on hormesis or on nuclear testing, which has been settled a long time ago?
So hormesis...
You wanted me to answer on hormesis?
Yeah. Is hormesis, vaguely, for laymen, for stupid people like me who don't understand your complicated ideas, is it the idea that background radiation levels at some levels are helpful for human health? Is that the idea? The basic idea?
We live in a sea of I got about half the sentence out before you started on the sarcasm again. Hormesis is the study of the effects of low-level radiation on human health.
And is that they